Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Eevee Comics, not the cartoon version, the real me, flesh and blood. I wanted to do a video today because I found something very funny, and I wanted to, I wanted to cover this because it is a very just insane situation, I think. But it's also exposed me to a new comic to review. And obviously, if you can read the title, you can and see the thumbnail, you'll know which comic I'm reviewing today, and that's Blue Shift. Now, Blue Shift is not a very huge indie comic or anything. I haven't really heard anyone talk about it at all since before this whole debacle here. But we're not going to be talking about Blue Shift, the Rippaverse character, which has just been revealed a few days ago in the Rippazine number 5. All the Rippazines, if you know, magazines for the Rippaverse, include at least one new character that they have a short story with throughout the book, throughout the magazine, I mean. And while I like that idea, nothing wrong with the idea, the concept of this character is very boring and very unoriginal whatsoever. I'm all for taking existing ideas and like changing them up and doing something new with it. For instance, my comic's main antagonist obviously is very inspired by Iron Man. There's the metal suit and everything like that. But what makes him different is his backstory, his motivations, and how he relates to the main character of the story, Little Miss Steel. And I feel like that separates him and sets him apart. Now, maybe this guy's story makes him very different from the Flash, but I can't help but look at this character design here, and think, oh wow, that basically just looks exactly like the Flash, just slightly different colors. Can I copy your homework? Yeah, but don't make it obvious. This is exactly that. To me, this just looks like freaking Wally West Flash, particularly Wally West because he's got the top of the mask face covering is like a hole where you can have his hair out, and it's orange. It's orange hair. You had one job, just make it blonde or something. Anyway, yeah, this guy seems to be a villain though because he's with two antagonists from Alpha Core. So him being a villain is, I would say it would be interesting if not for the fact that the DC universe already has a villainous speedster character in Reverse Flash, right? So interesting thing happens whenever Shades of Vengeance comments. Now, Shades of Vengeance says, we might need to have a chat. I created a speedster called Blue Shift in 2016, and she has several ongoing comics. I'll DM you. Interesting. So let's look at another tweet from Comicsgate Drama, someone who does pretty good reporting on all things Comicsgate in the scene, right? Anything to do with the drama, this guy's on it, and he does it with a fairly unbiased tone in his word choice, and he tries to be very objective. He tries to present the facts and let the community figure it out. Now, most of the time, the community is going to be against the Rippaverse in the Comicsgate scene because they hate them. For some reasons that I think are valid, and for some reasons that I think are a little blown out of proportion. But the point is that this guy brought this attention to me that there was this Blue Shift comic, and I was like, you know what? Why not? Why not check this out? So what I did was I went over to Sov Comics, which of course would be Shades of Vengeance Comics, to check out what they're doing. And primarily what I found is that they're primarily about their games. They list that first on the About Us page. It lists what is Shades of Vengeance. We create games and we produce comics to expand our game universe. So clearly their top priority is games, and the comics are secondary. They are to serve the games, which I think is fine, totally fine. So with that being said, I can understand if this comic going into it, I understood that if this comic does not have as much well put together artwork or writing, it wouldn't be that big of a deal for me because I know that this is not their priority, right? They're mostly working on the game, the games of their their company, obviously. So priorities are important. The priorities are an important thing to keep in mind, and I think that's something that going into this story, I was thinking about that. Now, this is a digital only comic. There's more Blue Shift comics and more comics featuring this character. But when I went to get our comics, when I clicked on this part of the page and I scrolled through, I found that this comic was the first one that appears to have Blue Shift in it. This is going from newest to oldest, and this is the first one with Blue Shift. Is also the one that Shades of Vengeance on Twitter used for the picture. I thought that, you know what, seems like a good place to start. Let me go ahead and click on this to see what this comic is about. So because it is a digital comic, it is not available for free. I'm not going to show too much images. I'm mainly going to show just a few pages, just to get my points across, because I have some criticisms that I need to make about some of the art specifically, but not too many. Just mostly nitpicks here and there. But I wanted to show that the artwork of the book does not look like the cover, because in my opinion, this cover is not the greatest. I love the pose, and I love the speed effects on the background. The hair looks freaking insanely good. But some of the soft shading on the characters' faces here, and I would think even on the outfits, is a little distracting to me. And something else, and this is just because I do this. I know this because I do this myself. Patterns on characters, if you're trying to make it have the effect of wrapping around the character, like the leg is round, right? The leg is like a tube shape, like a log. I should not have done this motion. Anyway, the pattern on the leg is clearly like a layer over top of the fabric and the color layer, and they did some morphing, they did some like stretching and condensing, but clearly it's not really wrapping around it. Like, just a few nitpicks here and there about it, but mainly because I think a cover art is very important. I think your cover art should resemble your comic style. And to me, this does not resemble it, because if I show you this first page, you can tell that the artwork on the inside of the book, in my opinion, looks much better than the cover art here. And that's why me going into this, I was like, okay, the artwork looks a little rough. This comic could be a little bit lower budget than the other stuff I've reviewed in the past. Like the Riververse stuff is all very high budget. Some of the other stuff, like, Rise Again Comics, fantastic artwork. They clearly they put money into what they're doing over there. Fonster and everyone else who works with them. But the artwork here, I think, is pretty good. It has like a similar cartoony style, which is always what I prefer. I really like that artwork style. And it works. It looks good. I don't really have too much complaints about it, other than here and there I'll address some things artwork wise about the scenes, about how the storytelling is handled. And every now and then you get a little bit of a janky hand here and there. Like this hand looks bigger than this hand, despite the fact that they're about like the same distance from the camera, so to speak. Look, hands are hard to draw. I know this because I hate drawing hands. And I'm not the best at it, but I'm always trying to get better. And keep in mind, this comic is 5 years old. I think the campaign ended in 2020 for funding it. So keep in mind, this comic is like 5 years old. The artist is probably much better by now than what this artwork is. So I'm not going to judge it too much as far as like the actual consistency of the quality here and there. It's not my biggest thing to judge. I'm mainly here for the story aspect. And when the art affects the story is when I'm more focused on it and more critical of it. And the overall story of this comic, if I am to summarize it, is that Blue Shift is a speedster superhero / vigilante. In this world, superpower people are called empowereds, and the general public does not seem to be too happy with them existing. Similar to like X-Men, not liking the mutants, stuff like that. And what happens here is Blue Shift, just to summarize it, I'm not going to try and spoil everything, but to summarize it, Blue Shift intercepts a robbery. 3 people are doing a robbery. They have superpowers, but they're not costumed. They seem to just be trying to be normal people. They don't seem to be like mustache twirling evil villains or anything like that. They seem to be doing this reluctantly. At some point, Blue Shift ends up getting injured and is going to be found by the cops and probably taken in for being an empowered. So the criminal trio actually take Blue Shift home with them. Late in the night, Blue Shift leaves and eventually comes across them again the next day. Turns out they do owe money, or someone is forcing them to get money for them by either blackmail or some other means. And so one of the trio gets separated, and Blue Shift basically has to save that person and go up against the real villain of this comic, while also starting to develop a relationship with one of the trio. Now, that's my spoiler-free plot synopsis. I'm now going to go into a little bit more in-depth and analysis of how the story is told. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to show a few pages. So please, Shades of Vengeance, please do not do not get mad at me for this one. Okay, do not get mad at me for this. I kind of have to show some pages to get my points across in the storytelling. So what I want to say is, let me go ahead and go to the screen again. What I want to say is the artwork not being perfect is only a problem to me if it is confusing or if it doesn't tell the story well enough. Now, what I want to say before I even start the criticism of these pages here, I want to say I love that the writers chose to show instead of just tell. I appreciate that tremendously. I am always a show don't tell person, or at least show sometimes tell. If you're primarily telling instead of showing, you need to rewrite your stuff because it does not work. It's really lame. It's one of the criticisms I made about Eyes of Wakanda's first episode was that they were just telling us how gifted of a fighter this main character was instead of actually just showing us that, like a training montage or something, some kind of backstory flashback. Anything would have been better than having the queen just tell us that the girl is super adept at combat. But instead, that's what they did. And in this comic, they do not do that, which I really appreciate. They show the powers instead of explaining them, and I really like that. That's one of the things I praised. I praised the ISOM comics about, was that it didn't. It kind of let you figure out what ISOM's powers are, and left it up to interpretation up until episode 3, in which he gave vague information that only made it more confusing to me, which is a criticism there. I think that was done poorly. But this actually does a pretty good amount of information giving just through the visuals of this scene. But there are a few problems with it. So in this scene, she's tackling the blonde girl, and the blonde girl at some point grabs her by the wrist. You see this blue glow, and then the very next page, now she's on the rooftop being held in the same wrist by this dude on the rooftop, and you see the lower half of her body still kind of phasing in. And what this scene is trying to show to me as a reader, what it's trying to show is that these two are twins, and they can teleport people or objects to each other's hands by touching them. And I like this idea. This power is really cool. I'm not sure if it's totally original or totally unique, never been done before. I don't know. Excuse me, that was a weird hiccup. But I don't know if it's like super unique, but I love it. It's the first time I've seen this be done in a comic book with superpowers. And I really think it's a cool idea. But what I really would have loved here is a few more artworks. Instead of this being like a full page artwork here, like it's the full page is this. What I really would have loved is maybe we have two more artworks up here at the top, showing her in the bank phasing away. You just see the blue outline of her, and she's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And then another artwork of her zoomed out from the rooftop, like a wide shot of her being teleported to this guy's hand up here. And to me, that would have gotten across what happened so much clearer to me. Because when I first read this, I was very confused looking at this. I had no idea what was really going on. I had to go back and start over reading it so I could figure it out. And part of that is, and part of this criticism is a criticism that I would give to the entire comic, is that it is just a little too fast. It is a little too rushed. It could really use a few more artworks of action and even in the dialogue scenes. It could use a few more artworks, a few more panels showing the characters in motion to make things work out. Now, that's always something to be improved on, and I'm sure the other comics after this probably do improve on it. But that's just something that I noticed through this. I was like, I could really use a few more artworks of this action taking place, especially the teleportation. Not so much all the time, but throughout it, throughout this comic, there are scenes where I'm like, I really wish there was a bit more visual to go along with the dialogue and dialogue. Another another slight criticism. This character Blue Shift is a talker like Spider-Man, like the Flash, the dialogue sometimes can be really funny. There's a joke here, and this is the only one I'll use, for example, because I want you to experience the rest of them, because there are quite a few that are pretty good hitting jokes. She's trying to stall this guy in the hood, and she says, he's like, "What are you doing here?" And she responds, "Well, I came to the bank to make a deposit, but I've seen to have been withdrawn." It's pretty good. That one got a legitimate laugh out of me, like an out loud laugh. I was like, huh, that's pretty good. There's a couple other jokes like that which I think landed pretty good. But the problem is that she's constantly quipping. She's constantly talking. And to me, having watched the MCU so much, I get tired of the quips. I get tired of the jokes like this. And if you haven't watched those movies, maybe it's not so tiresome to you. But for me, I've watched a lot of them, and it's gotten old. It's why I try to limit the amount of quipping my characters do in the comics, just because I know I find it annoying. Other people will find it annoying too, I'm sure. So the besides that, I think the action, the artwork overall is pretty good. Just throughout the comic, I think the artwork is pretty good. The posing is fun, and the directing of the shots is really good. Like, this angle is pretty cool. And there's a few things where I looked at this, I'm like, I wonder if I can do something like that in future Little Miss Steel volumes. Which, by the way, Volume 4 is very close to being done. It is very close. After this video goes up, keep checking the channel, because I'm gonna make an announcement saying Volume 4 is out very soon. But yeah. The action sequence that goes on from here, she ends up going back down to the bank and throwing both the twins into the vault, and then she ends up getting shocked by the third friend. The third friend cannot really control his electric abilities that well, so he freaks out, saying that, "Oh no, I've killed her." Because the cops are arriving, the long blonde hair girl is saying, like, okay, we need to take her out of here because the cops are gonna get her. And let me just go back and see her name, because I kind of forgot what her name is. I'm trying to see. Kosh is I think the name of the dude who was zapping people. And then Danny is the name of the male twin. Shira, that's her name. Shira. Okay, Shira is the long blonde hair girl. And I'm saying this because I'm pointing this out because I want to make note of another slight criticism. I'm gonna go back to this page now. The main character's name is Beth, and she's blonde. And she, at the very beginning, at the very first two pages, she seems to be going on some kind of date that she met someone online, and she's describing a blonde woman. So the two of the main characters have blonde hair, and then the third one has blonde hair, being Danny. And Shira and Beth both kind of look similar in the face. I'm not saying this comic has same face syndrome, but the faces aren't super distinct, because all the characters or three of the characters are blonde, and all of the characters are white. And let me just like do a little thing here. Yes, this comic immediately on like the first page confirms that the character is lesbian. I know some people will find that annoying and click off of it. I choose to give stuff a fair shot. Arcane is one of the best animated shows I've ever seen. Like it's fantastic animation, fantastic acting, music, and writing. I think the story of Arcane is really good. Even season 2 I really enjoyed, even though I know some people did not. And it features lesbian characters. And to me, having gay characters or trans characters, whatever, does not inherently like ruin a story. If it makes the story all about how that character is gay or something, then yes, then that makes the story ruined, because then it's just like it's no better than a Hallmark movie where the where all it's about is about a romance. And people who want to see comics, want to see comic book related media or similar genre stuff like Arcane, are not here to watch only a romance. We are here to watch action, some comedy in some cases, and some really good like mystery writing, with the plot and stuff. And to me, I look at this and I'm like, this does not take center place in the story, though it does have a little bit of a distracting quality to it, in the fact that, as I mentioned, this comic is kind of rushed. It's kind of fast paced. It's only 24 pages. And if they just had a few more pages to maybe develop the relationship that's starting here, maybe it would have felt a little more natural. Because as it is, the Beth and Shira, these two blonde chicks, develop feelings way too fast, way too unnaturally fast, it seems. And the comic, the framing of the shots and everything tries to like make it very obvious that these two are sort of falling for each other. And to me, it's like I don't get it. I don't really see it. You haven't convinced me that these two are having a crush on each other. I'm not being convinced by that, by just how fast paced this comic is. And yes, it is fast. It is a fast character. But just because the character is fast does not mean the pacing should be fast. Sometimes it's good to slow things down and focus on the character's motivations and stuff like that. And as far as the actual character Blue Shift, there's not a whole lot of development to be found here, other than maybe she begins to think of these criminal situations where she stops robberies and stuff. Maybe she starts to look at them with a little more nuanced than just saying that everyone who's doing this is evil and mustache twirling villains. Maybe she comes out of this being a little more sympathetic for people. But there's not too much as far as development for her character. This is just the first volume, so I'm not expecting a whole ton of development. This is mainly here just to establish her character, and it establishes her character as a good person who's trying to be a hero in a world where anyone with superpowers is kind of looked down upon, or people fear them, right? So to me, that kind of establishes her character as a good character, right? And then these trio that are doing the robbery are established as people who don't want to be doing this, but feel like they're forced to by a villain in this comic. Which eventually the villain fight, again, I feel like it was over a bit too quickly. The design of the villain is kind of similar to like a fusion of Skeletor and Taskmaster, skull faced, hooded, but this time instead of using like some kind of machine guns and grenades and stuff like that, like, or swords like Taskmaster does, bow and arrows, whatever. Instead, this guy is just straight up a necromancer, and he can summon like zombies and zombie hands coming out of the ground and grabbing you, and it's cool stuff like that. It's very cool, and I think it works. It makes that character stand out a lot compared to the others who seem to be not so much magic based and more of like a they have this power biologically or whatever. And the powers of the twins, the teleporting powers, is used very effectively towards the end. And I even think visually it's shown better than the example I showed you later on. They really get a good demonstration of how it works, all while never explicitly explaining how it works, just showing us like what these twins can do. And again, I really appreciate that. I think the second time they showed the twins doing the teleporting, I think it works much better than the first time. It was much more clear to me what was going on by that point. And maybe had they have done it that way the first time and done it in the faster, less I guess artwork consuming way the second time, I wouldn't be making the complaint in the first place. But yeah, I mean the idea basically this comic kind of sets up is Blue Shift finding a new villain that she needs to fight in order to save this trio of unwanting criminals and trying to get them out of this situation. And I do want to see what happens next. Whenever I'm reading this, at no point was I ever bored. I was very much like intrigued, like, okay, what's going to happen next? Who are these people exactly? Why would they help her? Why would they be helping the superhero who's trying to stop them from robbing the bank? Why are they doing this? And then it's revealed that they don't want to be doing this. I think it was told fairly effectively for a first volume. I think this does a decent job of explaining the characters, but there are just some issues I have with the pacing of the writing of the relationship that's starting here between Beth and Shira, and some of the visual representations of the powers. But overall, for $2.50, would I say give this comic a shot? Sure, it's only $2.50. I mean, you just don't buy a candy bar nowadays. I remember back in my day when a Hershey bar was like 60 cents. Screw this country. I'm kidding. But yeah, I mean, $2.50. You just make yourself a sandwich one day instead of getting fast food somewhere, and you've paid for this comic. So I say give it a shot. That's why I don't want to show I don't want to show more artwork than I've already shown. I don't want to go into more detail about every single little thing in this comic, because I want you to experience it. And I'll include the link to the website. It's Shades of Vengeance comics, SOV comics, and they got plenty more. Because again, I showed you this, like the store. There's a lot going on here. They seem to have like a Empowered Volume 1. They seem to have some kind of compilation of comics from these first few over here for $10. You can also buy most of them physical. The only one that's digital only are these first three, and it makes sense why they wouldn't be printing these physically, because they've got the compilation one that's physical. So, support these guys, check out the rest of their stuff. Because, I mean, the stuff looks really cool here. Some of the stuff, some of the artwork here looks really good. And some of the characters look cool. Like, their designs are pretty cool and stuff like that. So, give them a shot. Give them a shot. And, I think, if anything, this Blue Shift drama from the Riververse has exposed me to another indie creator. And I'm always down to support other indie comic creators, especially if I see especially if I can see like some good potential in this in what they're doing. And I think Blue Shift does have some good potential. I just think they need to slow down the pace of it a little bit, and keep doing what you're doing as far as like visual storytelling. Keep doing that, but just a little slower paced, a little more artwork panels here and there to show things happening, and I think this comic would be significantly better. But yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by this, so I may return to this in the future. I may review Volume 2. I may review some more stuff from them, and yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see what happens next. I think it was a pretty decent read. It's a short read, but it's a pretty decent read. And I don't feel like I wasted my money. I feel like $2.50 is a fair price for a digital comic. So, if you want it for free, just DM me. I'm kidding. I would never do that. But thanks so much for watching. If you want to read my comic, Little Miss Steel, check it out on Global Comics. It's doing pretty good in views. We got a random surge come in a couple of days ago, and that was really nice to see. So thanks so much for watching it and enjoying it. Share it with your friends. And look forward to Volume 4. It is coming very, very soon. Thanks for watching. Until next time, peace out.